Hi everyone, I'm Callie Kim. Welcome to my garden. Today I'm going to share with you 5 reasons that fall gardens fail and how to fix them so you get the harvest that you want. Now, fall gardening can be very frustrating and very tricky. Maybe some of you have quit because of failed past attempts. I totally get it. There are important fixes that you need to know in order to avoid these fails. And that's exactly what I'm going to cover today so that this year you can do things differently and successfully. The biggest reason fall gardens fail is because you're planting too late. Don't wait till temperatures cool down to get your cool weather seedlings planted. And the reason for this is because then you won't have enough time for your vegetables to come to maturity before the weather gets too cold. A lot of gardeners don't even know their first frost date. You gotta know this date. Knowing this date will help you avoid damage to your plants if unexpected frost occurs. Now, the fix for this is easy. You've got to know the first frost date in your area. You can find this out easily by checking almanac.com. And I realize we covered this in last week's video, but that's how important it is. So pop in your zip code over there, find out the first average frost date in your area, back up about 6 to 8 weeks before that. Either direct seed your plants right in the garden like we talked about in the What to Plant in September video, or start from seed indoors. We just planted this Ruby Queen beets about a week ago. It's already popping up. The soil is nice and warm, so it pops up quickly. However, here in Southern California, it's still 90, 95 degrees, so it's still way too warm for a lot of cool weather vegetables. So what I did is I started a whole bunch of them from seed indoors about a week ago. Because the temperature is regulated inside, it's about 75, 80 degrees in our house, which is perfect for these seedlings. So we've got broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, peas, and lots of greens. They popped up within a week. In about 6 to 8 weeks, when the temperatures do finally cool down here in Southern California, I'll have really nice transplants ready to plant out in the garden, which will give me a jump on my fall gardening season. Now, if you're already getting a bit of a late start, no worries, there's an easy fix for that. Just make sure that you plant crops that are going to mature in the time that you have. For example, if your first frost date is mid-October, plant vegetables that will mature in about 4 weeks, such as these lettuce transplants here. They grow quickly, you'll be able to put them in your garden and get a harvest before the weather gets too cold. Plus, they are frost tolerant, so they'll be able to survive the first frost of winter, so you can still have your fresh salads. Reason number 2 why fall gardens fail is because of planting too soon. Now, fall gardens need cooler temperatures in order to survive. And maybe you got out there in the summer heat and planted your seeds in your containers in your raised beds. And I get it. You're excited to have the variety in your garden. However, exposure to the summer sun and the summer heat can be brutal on fall vegetables. They could get stressed out and die. Planting too early is a huge temptation for us southern gardeners in frost-free winters because September and October, we're still getting temperatures in the 90s and even triple digits. For example, what I did here is I planted lettuce seeds in my Callie Kim 5-gallon Smart Pot. Excited to have green lettuce salads again, but they're definitely showing the effects of the summer heat. Yellowing leaves, getting eaten by bugs, and they're just not taking off. The fix for this is very easy. Just pay attention to the average temperatures in your area. You can find these out by checking weather.com and time your planting when the weather's cool down in the 70s. Start planting your seeds about 2 weeks before that, outdoors, and indoors about 6 to 8 weeks before that. Reason number 3 why a lot of fall gardens fail is because you're choosing the wrong varieties to grow. Fall garden vegetables like the cooler temperatures of fall, so they like temperatures of 75 degrees or under. And maybe you never knew this before and you're trying to grow things like tomatoes, cucumbers, or peppers and wondering why they're just not growing in the fall. So let me just give you an example of this. About a week or so ago, I planted some radishes here in my Callie Kim 5-gallon Smart Pot in the shade of my tomato plants. Now, radishes love cooler temperatures and they're just popping up even though the temperatures are nice and warm. But as the temperatures cool down, they're going to start to thrive and grow as my tomato plants are dying out. In addition to that, if your growing season is short here in the fall, choose cool weather vegetables that are smaller, more compact, and will grow from seed to harvest a lot quicker. So here I've got my fall garden seed started, as I've been mentioning, and a lot of these are more compact vegetables from my fall garden seed collection. Now, usually broccoli takes about 90 days to go from seed to harvest, but the DeCisco broccoli, it's a super delicious variety, a smaller broccoli, and goes from seed to harvest in about 60 days. So by carefully choosing your seed varieties, you can have a successful fall garden and get the harvest that you want. Now I've taken all the guesswork out of it for you with my fall garden seed collection. There's 14 varieties in here that are more compact, just from seed to harvest quicker. You can grab them for 25% off over at CaliKimGardenandHome.com so that you can have the harvest that you want. Reason number 4 why fall gardens fail is due to a lack of sunlight. The fix is I changed my planting strategy. Rather than planting everything on the hill, I plant mostly here along the back wall where the hours of sunlight are maximized during the wintertime. So in the fountain planter here, even though it still only gets about 3 to 4 hours of sunlight in the winter and the fall, I plant crops that need the extra sunlight, like cabbage, broccoli, the brassicas. That way they have maximum sun exposure and I can still get a harvest. Now, that being said, you can still plant crops in shade in the wintertime. And good crops for that are things like leafy greens, kale, mustard greens. So plant those crops that don't require as many hours of sunlight in the shaded parts of your garden. Or plant your fall crops in containers with handles like these smart pots that you can move from the shade into the sun. Look how much brighter it is over here. They're going to grow a lot faster. Fall garden fail number 5 is poor soil preparation. Now I know a lot of you are worn out by the summer heat and don't feel like amending your soil here to plant your fall garden, but you can't grow in the same soil you grew your plants with over the summertime. And the reason for that is the summer garden depletes your soil of nutrients. Drought, sunshine, everything hardens and compacts the soil, sometimes kills the beneficial bacteria and microbes that are really important to grow your garden. And the soil has to be replenished in order for your fall garden to thrive. So here I've got a nice empty spot here in my raised bed. And what I'm going to do to prepare my soil, it's really easy, you guys. Just amend the area that you're planting. So I'm just going to sprinkle in some compost. I'm also going to add in some worm castings. And it's very important that you encourage and replenish the microbial activity in your soil. I also like to add in some of the granular organic fertilizer, which has a really good NPK. And just mix it in. You don't got to go crazy with this. Pop in your transplants, and then in order to activate those microbes and give your plants the nutrients that they need immediately, water them with a good water-soluble fertilizer. These nutrients are immediately available to the plant, and I like to use the Vermistera worm casting tea. And the microbes come alive in the soil so they can help break down the time-release fertilizers that we just added, the compost, worm castings, and organic fertilizer. And that way it releases the nutrients to the plants. I've used the same process for years and it really does make a difference. Can you do me a favor? If you've used this process before in your garden, leave me a comment. Let me know the results you've seen. For those who are just now hearing this for the first time can benefit from it. Now here's that bonus tip I was telling you about to deal with unpredictable weather, because fall is famous for that. Either you've got some extreme heat coming in at the last minute, or you've got an unexpected frost that you weren't aware of. You've got to have your supplies ready to protect your garden. The time is now, before the unpredictable weather hits, not on a day when it's going to be 100 degrees. The first one being shade cloth. Especially for you southern gardeners who are still in hot temperatures, have your shade cloth at the ready so you can quickly toss it over your plants to protect it from a hot day. This can make the difference between a dead fall garden and one that's surviving until the temperatures cool down. Shade cloth comes in various levels of UV protection from 40% on up to 90%. So the hotter the temperatures, the higher the percentage of shade cloth that you want to have. You can check my video description for all the links. Now, the other thing is for your northern gardeners who might have unexpected frost, have your frost blankets or your frost covers handy and your little cloches to protect your seedlings. So here's an old quilt that I like to use for a frost blanket or to protect from the cold since we don't get very many frosts here. You can use it in a similar way that you use shade cloth. Just throw it over your plants to protect it on those cold nights. And you can also throw this over your warm weather vegetables to protect it on the nights when they might frost and get frost damage. Now, a couple other really easy things you can use for frost protection are cloches. Now, don't let that fancy word scare you. Just look around the house for things that you can use for cloches to cover your plants. This is just a canning jar. So if we were going to get a cold night, I could place it over this tiny little seedling here that's just coming up so it won't get damaged by the cold. And then make sure though to take it off in the morning when the sun comes up so the plant doesn't fry. Some other things that I like to use are my smart pots as well, just to pop over for cold protection, or just plastic containers that you might have sitting around your house work really well for that. Pop it over your containers or even plants in your raised beds. A little simple tip like this can go a long way towards a dead garden or a fall garden that thrives and get you the harvest that you want. Now you have the fixes so you can avoid your fall garden failing, do things differently, and get the harvest that you want. Let me know which one of these resonated the most with you. Thanks for watching. See you next time in the garden.